Everyone knows Isabella Rossellini from her world-class performances, but the story of her real life might be more dramatic than any film she's made.
In 1952, Swedish actor Ingrid Bergman and filmmaker Roberto Rossellini welcomed fraternal twin girls, Isabella and Ingrid Rossellini.
We grew up dressed the same, sleeping in the same room, you know, so for many years we were the same.
While Ingrid pursued a career in Italian literature and film education, Isabella chose the spotlight, just like her superstar parents. The girls were raised in a polygamous setting, with Isabella later telling David Letterman,
"My father was married, besides my mother had other wives and other kids, so we were 7 altogether."
During her childhood, Isabella moved between France, Italy, and Sweden, becoming fluent in 3 languages. On the outside, it seemed that the family was doing well financially, but that wasn't the case. She told the New York Times, "Sometimes people think that with fame comes money, but it doesn't. My father was always an experimental filmmaker. He was always very rigorous. He was an influential filmmaker, but he was never a box office success." When Rossellini was in her late teens, her mother sent her to study at Finch College in New York to perfect her English. As Rossellini told Interview magazine, "When I grew up in the 50s, 60s, if you knew English, the doors would open everywhere."
It took me so much, you know, to try to be warm and speak with that accent.
Rossellini soon earned a 3-year opportunity to work as an assistant and translator for Italian sports journalist Gianni Mina, who had a TV show but wasn't familiar with the language. Rossellini covered interviews and got to meet stars like boxing legend Muhammad Ali, as she recalled with Vulture. "It was the best job you could do. I learned problem solving, research. I would also do skits with a comedian named Renzo Arbore, who was then offered his own show. So I went to work with him, doing little funny stories from America." While on staff at the TV channel, Rossellini met her first husband, filmmaker Martin Scorsese. As Rossellini explained to Vulture, she hadn't watched Scorsese's 1978 documentary The Last Waltz ahead of their interview. Instead, he invited her to see it afterward. The following year, the couple walked down the aisle. Rossellini would later admit that her connection with Scorsese came about because of her background. She told the Irish Independent, "When I married Martin Scorsese, I was 27, and I didn't think there was that much that was interesting about me. But he was fascinated by my father. We used to visit Italy together. He was thirsty for understanding of the place and of Italian-American culture. His films are all about that." The couple split in 1982 due to issues with infidelity. Scorsese eventually settled down for the long term with Helen Morris. Rossellini's entry into the world of modeling was purely accidental. A photo shoot she had done in passing with renowned photographer Bruce Weber found its way onto the cover of Vogue, and since then, she has appeared in the magazine numerous times. Although she was still married at the time, Rossellini didn't wear her wedding ring. She revealed to Vulture, "Models weren't supposed to have an identity beyond the photograph. You were the element for people to complete their fantasy of an ideal woman." The Vogue cover got Rossellini in the door for a years-long working relationship with cosmetic giant Lancôme. The gig made her more money than she could count, but in the mid-90s, she was axed by the beauty retailer for her age. It would take another 23 years or so for Lancôme to reconsider and hire her back.
"I see you, little thing."
Rossellini told The Guardian in 2020, "I'm not there now to represent beauty. I'm there to represent a different dream. It may be defined as joyfulness. Life goes on, and there are many chapters. I think that's why they keep me." Photographer Bruce Weber was instrumental in Rossellini's modeling career, as well as the meeting of her second husband, former model Jonathan Wiedemann. As Rossellini's daughter, Elettra Wiedemann, told the Daily Mail, "I owe my existence to Bruce Weber and Calvin Klein. Bruce introduced my parents to each other on a Calvin Klein shoot. My mother had just lost her mother and realized she wanted a family of her own, so my parents didn't waste time conceiving me." Born in July 1983, Elettra eventually got into the modeling industry and worked with all sorts of top industry brands and other celebrity talent. She also appeared as an actor in her mom's 2011 documentary, Animals Distract Me, and the John Cameron Mitchell-directed music video for Agent Provocateur, Control Yourself. Elettra got her master's in biomedicine from the London School of Economics and Political Science and is the executive director of Isabella's Mama Farm.
Now my life is very intertwined with my mother's.
10 years after she had Elettra, Isabella adopted her son, who also shares her father's name, Roberto Rossellini. In 1986, Rossellini starred in the David Lynch-directed Blue Velvet. The role was meant for British star Helen Mirren, but she declined it. In the multiple award-nominated flick, Rossellini plays Dorothy Valens, a nightclub songstress whose family's kidnapping leads to a whirlwind romance. Rossellini was subsequently thrust into the limelight, as graphic themes sparked mixed reactions from the public.
Look, I'm sorry, just let me leave.
No way! I want to see you get undressed!
According to renowned movie critic Roger Ebert, some of the movie's explicit moments came at the expense of the actor's mental wellness. He wrote, "The movie is powerful, challenging, and made with great skill, and yet it made me feel pity for the actors who worked in it, and anger at the director for taking liberties with them." Rossellini responded to the sentiment, telling backstage, "It was very controversial. I remember not reading the reviews at the time, but being told by several people that Roger Ebert felt very protective of me and felt I had been used. It was a surprise. I am an adult. No one uses me." Rossellini and David Lynch first met after Rossellini had wrapped up her first role in the United States in White Nights. They worked together on Blue Velvet and dated afterward, bringing Rossellini's relationship with Jonathan Wiedemann to a halt. But these two weren't destined to last forever either. According to Rossellini, there were no signs that anything was wrong in their relationship. She told one German outlet, "All my instincts had told me that we were a happy couple." She was then caught by surprise when Lynch suddenly left after 5 years together. Rossellini sought professional help to deal with the breakup. She revealed, "I talked to other women who had the same thing happen to them, and I did therapy. I had already had this experience when my parents died. That time heals." For his part, Lynch was remorseful about his actions. Speaking to Vulture about the split, he said, "I might have wanted to shut the door and not leave a squeak of light coming through, but I feel bad about cutting it off that way." In 2013, Rossellini purchased the farm of her dreams in Brookhaven, on the south shore of Long Island, New York. At first sight, the place made her think of home, even though it required a major facelift. She explained to Vogue, "I noticed this very beautiful big red barn. It reminded me straight away of Sweden. As soon as I saw it, I loved it." Rossellini transformed the rundown property into a barn-like residence with a pool and gym and packed it with farm animals. She named it Mama Farm, telling Charlie Rose,
"A lot of people call it Isabella's farm. And I said, it cannot be called Isabella Farm because I'm going to die."
Having opened up her farm to the public, she explained that Mama Farm was an ode to the mothers and children who visit, in order to learn about plants, animals, and fruit.
Look at this one, it's called the Polish. Has an incredible hairdo.
According to the Mama Farm website, a stay in the serene haven costs $350 per night. In April 2024, Rossellini unveiled the Mama Farm Foundation. Through a post on Instagram, she announced the sale of ponchos made by wool from Mama Farm's sheep to help fund the effort. Rossellini's daughter, Elettra Wiedemann, welcomed her first child in January 2018. As for her reaction to becoming a grandmother, Rossellini wrote in an Instagram post, "On Ronan's 3rd birthday, here is the photo of our first encounter after a long night of my daughter's labor. I even fainted and I didn't give birth. I am the Nana, but was overwhelmed with emotions." In 2018, Rossellini, Elettra, and her partner Caleb Lane, Roberto, and Ronan turned heads while walking down a Dolce & Gabbana runway together. It was Ronan's first modeling gig. Wiedemann and her future husband, Pretty Little Liars actor Caleb Lane, shared more good news in June 2021, when their second child, Vigo River Lane, was born. It appears that the job of a grandparent is close to Rossellini's heart. In May 2024, she posted a picture of herself holding a baby's hand with the caption, "I love being a grandmother, a Nana." Rossellini's love for animals began at a young age. In a reminiscent Instagram post, she shared that her family would often have a lamb brought in for Easter celebrations. But as she recalled, "I think it was killed for our meals. Of course, I never realized that and just kissed it as much as I could."
I am known as the praying mantis.
In the late 2000s, she starred as the narrator and illustrator in the educational series Green Porno, which explored animal mating tendencies. Then, in 2020, Rossellini brought her talents online in yet another animal-related show dubbed Sex and Consequences. Just a year prior to that, she had graduated from Hunter College. She announced, "Finally got my master's degree on animal behavior and conservation. The ceremony was most touching and inspiring. Hillary Clinton delivered the commencement speech. I am overwhelmed with emotion and gratitude." Rossellini is most happy when she's surrounded by a lot of animals, and she clearly loves each of their unique personalities. The actor told German public media DW in 2020, "I have a little circus dog that I toured with in a show called Link Link Circus. She is the most obedient. The hardest ones are the sheep, because they are big animals. And the other day, they just broke into my house." It goes without saying that Rossellini was destined to be an entertainer from the start. As a young girl, she spent a lot of time on set with her director dad, learning the ropes. Now in her 70s, Rossellini hasn't hung up her boots just yet. In 2023, she appeared in the archaeological tale La Chimera, which premiered in the United States in March 2024 and bagged several award nominations, including wins for Best Cinematography and Best Ensemble Cast Performance at the Chicago International Film Festival. Although it didn't quite do as well at the box office, with a revenue of $44,511 for its opening weekend in the United States and Canada, the film represented a glimmer of hope for Rossellini. In April 2024, she received a Best Supporting Actress nomination at the David di Donatello Awards. It was an achievement that convinced her that her acting career was still intact. Having been a previous winner of the award, she posted on Instagram, "It's not over. The door is still open. What joy it is to work even if I am old."
In 2003, back when Elettra was around 20 years old, she was approached by famous fashion photographer Bruce Weber to model for an Abercrombie & Fitch campaign. This didn't come out of nowhere. He was actually the one who helped Elettra's parents get acquainted with each other back in the day. Elettra soon became a known face in the modeling industry, garnering fame for her work with numerous fashion brands and magazines. Elettra's popularity peaked in 2006 when she was hired as the spokeswoman for Lancôme, the same world-renowned perfume and cosmetic producing company Elettra's mother served as a spokesmodel from 1982 to 1996. By 2010, Elettra had modeled for Lancôme's Blanc Expert Hydra-Zen Neurocom, the perfume Trésor in Love, and 2 other cosmetic collections. In 2010, Elettra got her master's degree in biomedicine from the London School of Economics and Political Science. Soon after finishing her education, she decided to end her modeling career and opt for a simpler life at Mama Farm, a Brookhaven, New York farm her mother founded in 2013. Since 2019, Elettra has been working as its executive director. Its mission statement reads, "Mama Farm endeavors to preserve and celebrate the heritage of our local environment and Mother Nature herself, the mama on whom we all depend." Speaking to Goop about her choice to leave her career in the modeling industry, Elettra noted, "There was a lot of pressure around self-promotion in the fashion world, and I really wrestled with that. Now that she's moved on from all of that, she's quite happy with her life at the farm." She explained, "My responsibilities in helping develop the farm and its role within the community have given me a new challenge to contend with. It's been a real gift." Like many of us, Elettra has always been a foodie. However, her passion for food reached new levels during September 2011's New York Fashion Week. At the time, she launched a 4-day pop-up restaurant called Goodness for everyone present at the event. Each day, a new chef from a renowned eatery was hired to be in charge, and the menu had 2 sections, Goodness, which featured healthy food items, and Goodness with a hint of badness, which featured less healthy items. In 2013, Elettra even hosted a YouTube cooking show for Vogue titled Elettra's Goodness.
Yes! Oh, that looks perfect.
In 2017, Elettra published a cookbook titled Impatient Foodie: 100 Delicious Recipes for a Hectic, Time-Starved World. The cookbook includes all sorts of recipes, from vegan and vegetarian dishes to meals meant for meat lovers. All the recipes in the book are easy to replicate and take very little time to whip up. As Elettra told Oat Living, "My goal is to re-engage a generation of people who have been largely excluded from the food conversation, namely those who want to figure out how to reconcile the slow food movement with fast-paced urban life and limitations thereof, kitchen space, accessibility, etc." As a celeb's kid, Roberto was no stranger to cameras. In fact, cameras are something he's extremely passionate about. He even dropped out of Stony Brook University to pursue a degree in underwater cinematography at New York's International Center of Photography. That said, he's just as dedicated to his work in front of the camera as he is to his work behind one. Despite being part of a famous family, Roberto was actually discovered on the streets of New York City. As he revealed to Couture, "It started with me randomly getting scouted in New York City by a photographer, and she wanted me to model for L'Officiale Italia." By June 2016, Roberto had signed a contract with Ford Models after being encouraged by his mother to start a proper career in modeling. Big-name brands he has worked with include Dolce & Gabbana and Michael Kors. Roberto and his mother moved to their farm in Brookhaven when Roberto was a kid. The decision was made after Roberto opened up to her about the challenges he was facing in adjusting to his life in New York City. Although Roberto moved back to the city shortly after he graduated high school, he never really shrugged his roots off. In an interview with Oliver Peoples, Roberto explained how being raised on a farm helped him connect to nature and share a deep bond with animals as well. As he put it, "Growing up here with my mom surrounded by nature and animals almost every day had a significant impact on my life and taught me a lot about self-sufficiency and how we as human beings are not detached, but an essential part of nature." In 2015, Roberto and filmmaker Kirsten Tanjutko founded a clothing brand named Control Plus. There's more to the name than you think, as the brand's official website explains. Major companies often Control Plus C, Control Plus V copy and paste existing concepts rather than creating original ideas. We decided to use the computer language of Control Plus to distinguish our brand's mission of originality. The brand sells a variety of items, including action figures, NFTs, and of course, clothes. However, their mission isn't limited to promoting originality. Roberto shares a dog named Nichola with Tanjutko, who is now his fiancée. The couple's love for their dog is the main reason behind their brand's collaboration with Korean Canine Rescue, a dog rescue organization with its headquarters situated in New York City and South Korea. In an effort to help the nonprofit save more dogs and hand them over to loving families, Control Plus donates precisely 10% of its sales to the organization.
That is so sweet.
Roberto is clearly a man with many talents. He currently looks forward to landing acting jobs, though he'd prefer shorter parts to get started. When asked if he'd carry on his mother's and grandmother's legacy and choose acting as a profession, Roberto told Cultured magazine, "It's been on my mind a bit recently. A small part or a smaller role is something I definitely do, but a main role is still a little intimidating." However, unlike Roberto, his sister doesn't really want to act in movies. In fact, she never did. In a 2009 interview with Mail Online, Elettra politely yet frankly explained why she never saw acting as a career option, saying, "I think it's something you have to have a super passion for, and I don't. I love cinema, but I don't want to act in it. I went on film sets with my mother as a child, and there was so much waiting around." With all that said, we're sure that many of Roberto's 42,000 plus Instagram followers would love to see him act, be it on the big screen or television.
Isabella Rossellini experienced much upheaval in her childhood thanks to her mother and father's turbulent relationship. She was just 5 when her famous parents, actress Ingrid Bergman and director Roberto Rossellini, divorced. Alongside 2 of her siblings, Isabella spent the following 2 years living across the road from her father in a Rome hotel with their housekeeper.
And Mama stayed in Paris.
Sadly, Isabella didn't have much contact with her mother during this period. She even told the New York Times that she never felt like she missed her mum. Isabella also belatedly dealt with the issue of her parents' split in a 17-minute film she created titled "My Dad is 100 Years Old." She explained to Interview, "I played myself talking to myself playing my mum, saying, 'Why did you divorce?' And my mother gives a description of my father's character, how wonderful and difficult it was to be married to him." In 1982, Isabella appeared on the cover of Vogue for the very first time, a clear sign that her career was in its ascendancy. However, her mother never got to see her achieve her full potential, as she died earlier in the year at the age of 67. Ingrid Bergman's death also came 3 years before her daughter landed her American breakthrough role in White Nights. Isabella told People in 2022, "She never saw my success as an actress. She was not with me when I had my own children or became a grandmother." But Isabella also believes that even decades on, her late mother is still leading the way. She said to People, "Mama had this physical energy, like a Scandinavian Viking. When she walked, I always felt I was behind her, trying to catch up. I'm still catching up to Mama today." When she was 11 years old, Isabella was diagnosed with scoliosis and had to undergo a complicated surgery. As a result, she spent much of her early teenage years in a head-to-toe cast.
So I have a very, very bad back.
Throughout this difficult period, Isabella was looked after by both her mother and twin sister, but Bergman couldn't be by her daughter's bedside when she had a similar procedure in her 50s, as the Hollywood icon had already passed away. Isabella later told the New Zealand Herald, "I missed my mother terribly because she was the perfect nurse." Unfortunately, Isabella had to play nurse herself when her own daughter, Elettra, was also diagnosed with scoliosis. Elettra was forced to wear a back brace between the ages of 12 and 17 upon learning she had the condition. As if all the spinal surgeries weren't enough, Isabella also had to undergo an operation for appendicitis at the age of 5.
It was a hugely worrying time for her father in particular, as the exact same condition had taken the life of his firstborn just over a decade earlier. Indeed, Isabella never got the chance to meet her older half-brother, Marco Romano Rossellini, who Roberto shared with his second wife, Marcella Di Marcus. In 1946, Marco Romano died at the age of 9 from a ruptured appendix, shortly before the director was due to start work on Germany Year Zero. Roberto later dedicated the film to Marco. In 1997, Isabella revealed in her autobiography, Some of Me, that a slightly older boy had sexually assaulted her in her teenage years. But the star didn't offer any further information, a stance that she continued to take in the wake of the Me Too movement. Isabella argued that although she understood talking about such experiences can be beneficial to others, she saw little value in digging up the past. She told Vulture, "The person that raped me, I was 15 or 16, he was a year older than I. Why would I dig out this story 48 years later? What if people start to say, no, you have to say the person's name?" Isabella then wondered aloud about the effect such a revelation might have on the man's life, including any possible marriages or children. She told the outlet, "I don't think that pinpointing one person and destroying their life because they made a sin in the context of that culture, I don't have the heart for it." However, the Emmy winner also expressed relief that the culture was changing. She said to Vulture, "We just lived with it. This is changing, I think. Men have to see they can't behave in these ways. For me, the interesting thing is how the Me Too movement has shown us all the subtle ways women can be diminished." You may find it hard to believe, but Isabella Rossellini doesn't have a single Academy Award nomination. And although she's appeared in some of the most critically acclaimed films of the last half-century, you can count her major box office successes on one hand. So why did the Italian-American never make it quite as big as she deserved to? Well, Isabella herself believes that both her heritage and her accent may have played a part. She lamented to Harper's Bazaar in 2021, "I would have loved to have a huge Hollywood career, but I became an actress when it was closed up." Isabella has been married twice, to filmmaker Martin Scorsese and model John Wiedemann. However, both marriages ended in divorce. But the relationship failure that appeared to have hit her the hardest was her split from director David Lynch. She began dating Lynch in 1986 after appearing in his cult classic Blue Velvet, but the pair went their separate ways in 1991. And judging by an interview she gave to WENN, Lynch was responsible. She told the outlet, "David was the big love of my life, and I believed that he loved me the same way, but obviously I was mistaken. All my instincts told me we were a happy couple, but we weren't." Isabella was left so distraught by the split that she sought professional advice to help in her recovery. She admitted, "I spoke afterwards with other women who had been through the same thing, and I took therapy, but the thing that helped me the most was time." In 1996, Isabella found herself on the receiving end of society's obsession with youth when Lancôme ended their 14-year working relationship, effectively dropping her from their advertising campaigns. The actor was 43 at the time and was told that she was no longer able to sell the dream of staying forever young. Isabella still seemed burned by the whole ordeal when she spoke to the Irish Independent several decades later, telling the outlet, "I can't say I wasn't sad. I know how to pose, I know how to give expression, and I had all this wonderful experience, but I couldn't exercise it or offer it to anyone. Yes, it was painful." However, Isabella surprised everyone when she returned to the brand in 2016. When asked by The Guardian why she didn't reject Lancôme's offer to return, Isabella replied, "There was that feeling when a friend asked why I was going back. I said, because I'm flattered, I'm very touched, I miss them. It's very personal, but I don't know whether I'm being forgiving."
I told him he shouldn't.
After David Lynch broke her heart, Isabella faced another romantic setback in the mid-1990s when actor Gary Oldman left her for another woman. Isabella and Oldman had fallen head over heels for each other after meeting on the set of 1994 biopic Immortal Beloved. But their plans to get married stalled due to Oldman's alcoholism. So when Isabella told him to either clean up his act or risk losing her, Oldman checked into a rehab facility. But unfortunately for Isabella, Oldman didn't just leave with a newfound sobriety. He also left with a new girlfriend. During the program, Oldman met and subsequently struck up a relationship with model Donia Fiorentino. The pair went on to marry later that same year. They also had 2 sons before ending things in 2001. As well as finding that her accent and heritage were a barrier to mainstream success, Isabella also discovered that middle age held her back from being cast in film roles. Just look at the star's filmography from the late 90s onward, and instead of the acclaimed awards fair that had become her trademark, you'll see plenty of little-known efforts that went straight to video. In a 2016 interview with The Guardian, Isabella reflected on Hollywood's attitudes towards aging and acknowledged that the adage, "age ain't nothing but a number," doesn't hold true. Luckily, she was warned ahead of time to prepare for such discrimination. She told The Guardian, "My mum told me that there is no job for women between 45 and 60, because you are in between. You are not young enough to play the young girl, but you are also not old enough to play the matriarch, the witch or grandmother."
That's the ageism, is the belief that women only want to be a sexual object.
She went on to explain that women actors face a 15-year limbo period when Hollywood struggles to cast them, before adding, "Then, after 60, a lot of work comes back. That was true for my mum." Indeed, in recent years, Isabella has returned to more esteemed projects, from surrealist comedy Problemista to the drama Conclave. Today's cinephiles will no doubt be aware of Ingrid Bergman and Roberto Rossellini. After all, Bergman was in iconic movies like Casablanca and won 3 Academy Awards, while Roberto Rossellini was the director at the forefront of the Italian neorealism.
Who are you? What's your name? What's your name?
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey what?
However, Isabella believes that when it comes to the general public, the 2 silver screen legends have been consigned to history. In a 2024 interview with Variety, Isabella admitted that she used to find it difficult to always be introduced as the offspring of cinematic royalty, rather than an artist in her own right. However, she'd now like nothing more than to be referred to as such. She told the outlet, "The younger generation doesn't know them, and it breaks my heart. Their reputations outlive them, but fame is very brief." Isabella had previously spoken about her parents' legacies in a more philosophical manner for her 1997 autobiography, Some of Me. In it, she pondered, "Is being remembered a kind of antidote to death? Is fame a sort of eternity?"